All right, so we are live. Hello, everybody. Thank you all joining us tonight. It's the first edition of 2022 for us, for Angular Birmingham. So I just want to say big thanks to Santosh for accepting our invite, and to Fanis and Jeffrey as well to be part of the panel tonight. I'm really excited about this talk. I've never published a library myself, but hopefully I wanna publish some in the future. So I think this is gonna be really a good talk and insightful through this process. So guys, if you want to say anything before we start.
Hello, good evening, everybody, or good evening for us at least.
So hello everybody. So nothing to add, and looking forward and excited for the talk.
Cool. All right, Santosh, let's start. If you share your screen, then we're ready to go.
Okay, let me know if you're able to see the screen.
Yes, I think we can see that.
Cool. Hey everyone, thanks for joining. And as Alex mentioned, we are going to see how to create and publish libraries, but we will be using Nx for this, and we will see how you can create Angular libraries in Nx, and we'll go through buildable libraries, publishable libraries, everything. So before I go ahead, thanks for the invite first, and let me tell you a little bit about myself. So I'm a GD for Angular. I'm also a GitHub Star, Auth0 Ambassador, and we have our own. We are working on our own community, which is This is Learning, so which is co-founded by me and Lars. And in case you have any questions after this, you can reach out to me on Twitter or LinkedIn or wherever you are, and you can just send me a connection request or DM, and I would love to answer those. So let's go ahead and get started, right? So the first thing is, of course, we are going to use Nx. So let me just talk a little bit about Nx, right? So I'll not take much time introducing Nx. So Nx is a monorepo tool. This is what most of the most of the people on internet knows, but no, Nx is not a monorepo tool. It's more than monorepo tool. You can actually customize it and extend it as per your use case. So it's an entire developer tool which you get with Nx. And as I mentioned, you can also build your own tool. So you can actually bring any of your existing tools and you can make it part of Nx. So you can probably make it as preset, or you can probably make it as a command, or you can make it as a generator, however you like. So you will be able to customize your own workspace using Nx. That's the beauty of Nx. And now coming to the libraries, why we should create libraries. So we'll discuss about few points, why we can create why we should create libraries, and then we'll go ahead and create few libraries, and we'll see some example that will be live code. Okay, let's go ahead and do that. So of course, first and the most important point, right? Everyone knows why to create libraries. That okay, I want to use reuse code base, right? Or I want to reuse some part of the code. So code reusability. That's the first point. Then, of course, code sharing. So when you work on enterprise application, there will be many scenarios where you want to actually build something, and then you want to share it across your organization. So this is where also code libraries come really handy. You can even give it outside organization. It means you can publish it on npm, and now people outside your organization are also using it. So second important thing, in day-to-day business, we need something where we are able to actually add or remove code, or able to refactor code faster. So if you have libraries, the advantage is, of course, whenever there is a new task, your developers will not actually end up uh, putting a lot of time actually figuring out where to make the changes, because your code is already actually properly structured into different libraries. Generally, if you go to the Nx docs, there are multiple types of libraries which you'll see. Like UI and data access and others, right? So you should actually design your libraries really well, and the advantage at the end you will get is your code will be easy. Your code will become easy to refactor, as well as in case you want to add new features. So saves a lot of time in case it is done properly. Now, if you have like big code base, of course the code review is shared responsibility. but who will do it, right? So generally, the experienced developers in most of the organization are responsible for reviewing your code, but not everyone is actually aware of the entire code base, right? So using NX, what you can do is, of course, you can create multiple libraries, and then you can actually decide who will be responsible for which code base. So you can distribute the responsibility. For example, if there is any feature related to, let's say, you have an e-commerce application and there is something related to orders, so you can actually say, okay, this person is the SME, or this person knows everything about orders, so he or she should be actually responsible for doing the code reviews. So this is how you can distribute it. One advantage which you generally don't think about is circular dependency. So I have migrated multiple applications from a single code base to multiple libraries, and the advantage which I have figured out, or advantage which I got, is it is easy to find the circular dependency in if you have libraries rather than if you have a single code base. You will never come across, okay, if something is causing circular dependency, because it's part of the same code base, right? I mean, that's the beauty of converting everything to Angular libraries. So sorry, libraries, that okay, whenever you try to break the boundaries, you try to export something from A to B and then B to A, of course it will break. I mean, it will give you, okay, there is some circular dependencies issues, and you will get that error before you publish your code, or you build your code, right? You can get the circular dependency error during your compile time as well. You can add code owners. I mean, we previously in the previous slide we mentioned, okay, you can distribute code responsibility, but how? So you can actually create a code owners file on GitHub or Git, and then you can define who will be responsible for doing the code review for the specific part. So in code owners, you can define user, or you can define a group. So in case, let's say, you distribute your all the developers uh, by some code, sorry, by some group, that let's say this is front end, this is back end, and then you can tag in your code owners file who will be responsible for reviewing. So with every PR, the persons who are part of that particular group will get a notification that there is a PR and you need to review that PR. It's a really good feature, I would say, in case you are using Angular libraries and you are using a lot, and you have a really good, really big enterprise application. Sorry. Using NX, of course, this is the other advantage, that you can actually use, or you can use the incremental build capability which NX brings you. So it's not like you will be building all entire code base again and again. You don't have to. You can just build what is changed. So that's incremental build, which is also available with NX. Now let's go ahead and see some code. So first thing, of course, how to create a library. So to create a new Angular library, what you have to do is you have to just use the schematics which is available. So you can say npx nx generate library and your library name. So I'll be creating 3 different types of libraries. Let's see. First, I have a new application created using NX. So you can see the libs is empty right now. There is nothing inside this, and this is the default application which got generated with NX. So let's create our first library, and to do that, I'll just go to command. Let me just zoom in. I hope this is visible.
Yeah, it's good.
NX generate lib, and I would say this is let's say. Call it as, let's say, shared libs. Naming is still the hardest part of programming. So it will create a new library called shared libs, and let's see. So if you see this shared libs right now, so you can see there is project.json, tsconfig.json, tslib, and tsconfig.spec. And let's go to the target here. So you can see lint test. What I wanted to show you here is, by default, whenever you create a new workspace using NX, the libraries are not buildable by default. So you have to make sure that whenever, let's say, if you want to utilize the buildable libraries, you should create a buildable library whenever you are doing it. There are multiple ways. I would tell you first how you can actually use these libraries. So these libraries are not buildable. So it works based on your path. So if you see, there is a path defined here, and I will be able to import anything from this particular library by using this particular path. So if you see here right now, I think we might already have a module, and let's add something more. So I'll say, okay, go to integrated terminal, and let's add a component. So I'll say NGGC component, and then this is, let's say, home. Sorry. So it will add a new component called home, and you can see it is already imported here in shared module. And now if I have to use this, I can just go to any apps, app module. Yeah. And then we can import using the path. But and this is G shared libs, and then we can see, okay, what is being imported here. There's something. Let's see a shared libs module, and we have to probably not export anything else, and it should work. And then we can just use this into your providers area, sorry, into your imports. Providers. I mean, this is a module, and let's see why it is not recognizing this. Probably some VS Code issue. So it's okay. We can just try building the app, and it will tell us whether there is any error. So let's build our X build and my app name libs demo. What?
Always excited if it will go right?
Sorry.
I say always excited to see the spinner and then see if it goes right.
Exactly. So yeah, so
And
you
it
can see
did.
the build. Yeah, it did. So now you can see the build is successful, and it means I'm able to actually use this particular library inside my application. But okay, of course, let's say this libraries are really useful. For example, you have something called utilities, and you don't want to build them. You can just use it as it is. For example, for styles where you don't need a buildable libraries, or something for test utilities, right? Which we don't want to build again and again. So these libraries are perfectly fine for them. But let's move on to the next library, which is buildable libraries. So in case you want to utilize incremental builds, or you want to utilize an X cache, you have to go ahead and use buildable libraries. The thing is how to move on to it, right? So there are two ways. In case, let's say you already created some libraries which are not buildable, I would suggest go ahead and check an Nx move. Nx move utility, which you can help to move your library to another library. So what you can do is create new library, use the move command, and then make it buildable. Otherwise, in case you want to set it by default, you can just go to this file, which is available in, what is that? Yes, Nx.json. Yeah. So here in Nx.json, you will find something known as libraries. So you will be able to find generators, and there is an Narwhal Angular library, and you can just add buildable here to true. So now whenever you create a new library, it will be buildable library by default. So let's try to create a buildable library. I will not use -FN buildable flag. You can actually also do that. So let's say if I want to create a new library here. So if you want to create a new library using this command, you can also use --buildable, which will create a buildable library for you. But right now, what we did is we added it to schematics itself. So now schematic knows whenever I want to, whenever there is a new command to create a new library, I have to make it buildable. Let's do that. And let's make it, this is components. So where I can put all the reusable components. And that's it. So let's see what kind of library we get now. And let's see. So if you go to libs components, now you will find there is a browser list RC file to figure out, okay, which platforms needs to be supported or which browser needs to be supported. There is a package.json. There is ngpackage.json, which in case you have created an Angular library, you may see, okay, this structure is a lot similar to what we used to do. And then project.json, it will have a build target as well. So you can see now there is a build target, and there will be, of course, others, lane test and everything will be here. But this will also contain a build target. It means you can build it. The using buildable libraries, remember one thing, this buildable libraries can be used only inside this particular workspace. So only inside this particular monorepo. So you cannot actually go ahead and publish this library outside. So this is the restriction. Otherwise, there are advantages that, okay, whenever you want to do build, of course, now this builds can be cached. In case you're using NX Cloud, you can actually just distribute the same build which you have available on your machine or on remote machine, and everyone can use that particular build in case it has not been touched. So it will increase your builds. You can also use the incremental build schematic, sorry, builder, which is available. So you may have to just change this one, the builder with the another builder which actually NX has for incremental builds. But yeah, that's something which you can try on by your own. And now this is the buildable libs, but in buildable libs, I'll cover one more thing, and then we'll come back, go back to the publishable libraries. And that's called secondary entry points. So there are multiple applications which I have worked on, and of course, creating libraries is a good approach, and you try to keep it as minimum as possible. But you will figure out that after creating libraries, then after adding a lot of code, you will figure out, okay, this library is now actually adding a lot of code or a lot of chunks into my existing code base. What is the approach to avoid this? Is secondary entry points. Why we should have secondary entry points? With Angular libraries, you will always get single entry point. And with single entry point, the problem is it will add huge chunk of code into your bundle. So what is the approach? You can actually have secondary entry points configured. It will actually just add the code which you are importing right now. So it will not add entire library to your chunk. So there are two ways you can do it manually. So it's like you can create a folder, move all the code inside that particular folder, inside the library, not outside, and then add a package.json. And but NX gives you a generator as well. So what you can do is using NX generator, you can say, okay, I want to create a secondary entry point, and NX will configure it for you. So let me just create a secondary entry point for components. So here, let's go back to the libs and see how it is structured right now. So you have components, src, and then lib, and there is a components module. So let's say I want to create a new component, and I want to configure it as a secondary entry point. So let's do that. So here, get lib, and I will say secondary entry points. Let's see what's the name. Library secondary entry points. Let's copy this. And so let's say this is something called forms. Okay. And it will ask for which library you want to do this. Enable to resolve. Cannot find generator. This. Oh my god. Did I made any spelling mistake? Library secondary entry points. Don't do this. Okay, let's see if I'm doing something wrong, but I doubt. Let's use it today.
No, I think it looks good.
Where?
Yeah, I think it's good. I'm only doubting if it's not without the library, just secondary dash entry dash point. But
NX.
there are two explanations on the documentation. So the one you got?
Okay. I made a spelling mistake, right?
Yeah.
Or I can just use secondary entry point.
Yeah, indeed.
Okay. Sorry, my fault. Next generate entry point, and then you can say, okay, this is the entry point which you want to create. So I want to say, okay, it will be like I want to create a secondary entry point for components. And this is how it will be created. So you can see now, if I go back to the code base, you will find the forms is available here that has a separate SRC folder, and it has a forms module, and it has index.ts and its own ngpackage.json, and it's readme. So if you see ngpackage.json, you will find that there's an entry file. That's it. And NX does one more thing for you. So if you go to tsconfig, you will find that there is a import path called ng components, and then there is a component/forms. If you see this, I mean, something similar to Angular material. So if you go to Angular material, or imports are always like this, right? So Angular/material/forms, Angular/material/progress bar. So you can create similar structure like this, and the advantage is you will not be paying, or the cost, you will not be paying for everything which you use, or whatever you are not using from this particular library. Sorry, let me rephrase it. You will be only paying for whatever you consume. So for example, if I just consume components /forms, I will just get the bundle or the code for forms. That's it. There is one issue which I found recently when I was playing with this. So here, let me tell you, in case you're already online and if you try to use it, and you will end up with one issue, which is here. So if you go to src, like this, test setup. So Git uses just by default. But in case you are using Karma config, so if you're using Karma, so you may get one issue. So in Karma, you get a file called test.ts. In test.ts, you will find that path will be used /, which will only look for test cases inside src, only for Karma. And in case so if you're a fan of still using Jasmine with Karma, in that case you will get the issue. Otherwise, with just you are cool, you don't have to make any changes. Just keep that in mind. I mean, in case you're using Jasmine, so you may have to change the path. That's it. Otherwise, you're good to go. So now I can just go ahead and go to imports, app module, and you will see, okay, import from ng forms, and then you can import forms module, which is available here, and then you can directly use it. So yeah. This is how you can configure secondary entry points with buildable libraries. And there is anything else? Yeah, there's one more thing. So I'll create one more. So let's say I'll create another secondary entry points, and we call it as spinner. And I want to create components. And let's say if you want to use something from spinner into forms, the suggested approach is something like this. So in case, let's say if I want to use this module, which is spinner module, inside forms, import from, so do this rather, ng/Birmingham/spinner. Don't use relative path. It may give you some build issues. So always use while using secondary entry points, and in case you're using within the same library, use this approach. So you already have your secondary entry points configured, and you can use something like this, and you're good to go. So your builds will not fail. Your builds will be they will not complain. But with this approach, there will be one issue which will get. While you run lint, you will find an error saying, okay, now you are breaking the boundaries. So if you remember NX enforce boundary, which is a tool which is available in NX, whenever you try to break the boundaries and to disable that, not disable, but to avoid that error, you can actually go to ESLint.json. And let me just copy the rule from here. So you can go to ESLint.rc, this enforce boundaries. I'll just copy this and I will override this rule here. You can just still keep it as error, and just to this dependency, I'll remove this dependency constants, and you can allow #star. So it will not give you the linting error once you actually run the lint for this particular code base, and it will be happy, because we are supposed to actually do this because we are using secondary entry points. So don't use relative path, use this approach where you are directly using secondary entry points inside forms. So this is how you can actually handle secondary entry points. Now let's go back to the last library, which is publishable library. Let's go back and see how we can do publishable library as now. Publishable libraries are useful in case you want to publish your code base outside of your workspace, probably NPM, or in case you have any other artifact available inside your organization, right? So to create publishable libraries, you have to do an extended, of course, library, and then do it as already have shared. So I'll just do it as services, and this is publishable. And it will ask, okay, I think it will give error because I have to give the import path as well in case I'm creating a publishable library. I have to give import path. Import path is how the package will be accessible. For example, Angular material, like that's the import path. So here I can say, okay, I have an import path is equal to ng/services. This is the import path. This is how you someone is going to access this particular library on the internet. And this is it.
Sorry, Santosh.
So,
sorry for interrupting. Is it me or there is a network issue?
Is it? I mean, is this
Alex, can you hear well?
Yeah, I think it's probably a network issue.
Yeah,
It's
it's
a bit of
also. We can barely hear you in the last something like about a minute.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Let me change my internet and let's move to another one.
Let's see.
I mean, the apartment where I'm staying is there is an internet issue, but
No, still the same.
Still the same, yeah.
okay, that's strange because I was using my provider.
Yeah. Strange because the screen resolution looks fine. So, but it's something with the voice.
I mean, I switched again. Still the bad. I mean, still there is a lag, or
no, there is. It's more like I don't know. It sounds like a robot voice, like some strange artifacts on top.
So yeah, I think that's network issue. So still you are able to. Okay. Cool.
This is better.
So I reconnected. Okay, so yeah, sure. So let's see the publishable library. So you can create a publishable library by using -f publishable.
Started again.
Oh my god.
So you know what? While we're waiting for the network, because I guess that sooner or later it will be fixed. Can we gain some time by asking some questions in order not to, or is it hijacking? What do you think, Santosh?
That's fine.
Okay, so the only reason that I want to ask some questions is just to gain some time and allow the network to be fixed. So you said that we have the libraries, the normal libraries, the buildable libraries, and the publishable libraries. Three different things.
Yeah.
And if we want in our application to import one library into the other library, so it's better to have the buildable library. And in order to have the buildable libraries, we need to have the secondary entry points. Is this the thing? Okay,
It's not mandatory. I mean, secondary entry points are not mandatory. It's only in case you think your library is not too big, and now it's too big and it is causing your bundle size to grow. Then you can actually go ahead and use secondary entry points.
Okay, so buildable library, it's not automatically secondary entry point. Secondary entry point is optional.
No.
Okay. Awesome.
Yes, exactly. It is something extra. I mean, this is some extra optimization which you are doing.
Nice. And by the way, now we can hear you very well. So thanks for this.
Cool. Yeah. So let's see this publishable library where you can actually pass -f and publishable, and then you have to give import path. Import path is of course your package name, which will be available on your Artifactory. So here I'm saying, okay, it's ngb/services. So anyone outside this Artifactory, outside this workspace or Monorepo can access this particular package using this name. And if you see, I mean, of course, you will find same package, same your files available here. Let me just close all this, close all. Let's components. Yeah. So if you see, I mean, you have same folder structure available here. You can also use secondary entry points with publishable libraries. That's if you see on internet, a lot of Angular libraries are already doing it. So if you go to Angular material, you will always find secondary entry points available there. So you can do the same for publishable libraries. So buildable libraries and publishable libraries both can have secondary entry points. And this is how it will be available. So ngb/services. This is the service. This, and let's try to build it now. Nx build and services. I think part. So okay, I'm not sure why this is the error. So you can see building entry points ngb service, and I will also build the components. Let's see. So if I do for components, you will find that it will build the secondary entry points as well. So it will start. And so you can see it's first builds the main entry point, which is components, and then it builds spinner and it builds forms. Why spinner first? Because forms is dependent on spinner, right? So spinner is built first, and then we have forms, and that's it. So this is how you can actually build it and then consume it. So you know, okay, it will work. It's because secondary entry point can be overwhelming sometime, because if you get into some issue, it takes a lot of time to figure out what is going wrong. But I think thanks to Nx schematics right now, you can easily configure it. I have done it always manually in past, even for some library open source libraries which I have always done it manually. But now you can do it by Nx. So these are three types of libraries, and you can actually go to distributable. You have your libs available, services, and this is the package which you can actually go ahead and publish on npm. Of course, I won't be able to do it right now because I don't own this particular namespace ngb, and it will give me error that okay, I'm trying to publish something which is I don't have access to. So I will get 403. So yep, this is how you can play with libraries. I think go with secondary entry points only in case you think your library is really big and it is adding a lot of chunks to your code base. And how you can figure it out, go ahead and use source map explorer. It helps figure out what from where your from where your chunks are coming, and it will help you to figure out if you need secondary entry points or not. Don't start with extra optimization. Secondary entry points is only in case you hit some bottleneck, right? So you have a lot of big chunks in your code base. Don't start with secondary entry points. That's what I want to say. It's something which you can do it in future, or in case you are going to publish something outside to others who will be consuming that. And of course, you don't want all the code base to be available in their code base. So go ahead and then start with secondary entry points. Otherwise, it's okay to have just buildable libraries and all the code base there. And yeah, that's it. I mean, in case you have any questions, we can take those. And if you don't, I mean, you can always reach out to me on Twitter or LinkedIn.
Cool. Thank you very much. That's quite nice and easy, especially I think everybody loves Nx. I love it. So that's very easy to kind of set it up. That's quite cool. So one question. Let's say you kind of start and have multiple entry points. What kind of point you kind of decide is this, let's say maybe entry point better if it's its own library rather than being an entry point?
Yeah, so that's a good question actually, because most of the developers, what they will end up doing is they will create another library. So don't do that. I mean, the way to decide is if they are related, right? For example, if I'm creating a reusable library, right? For example, components. So I'm creating components, and then I know that okay, a lot of components will be there. So that's your thing, right? So you have to decide, okay, now all the components, reusable components, will go inside this library, and then I will start configuring secondary entry points for them, rather than actually creating each library for each component. Don't do that.
Yeah, so that's better. Have a secondary entry points.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's say if you have multiple publishable libraries, because each of them has its own package JSON. So that means you have to maintain multiple package JSON technically. So if you update your main monorepo, the NX monorepo, that's one package JSON, and then you also have to kind of keep in sync everything else, all the package JSON. Is that I don't know, problem in the long run, or is it okay? Or
I mean, yeah, that's something which can be an issue. For example, if you don't want to update one package, but you want to update the second one, so that can be an issue for sure. That's, of course, that's a trade-off of using monorepos, right?
Right. Yeah. Of course, yeah.
I think with Nx plugin, there's like a semantic versioning plugin that will assist you a bit on the different packages.json files. So I've not used it, so I don't know much about it. I only know that it's there and you can leverage it or use it with semantic versioning and these kinds of stuff. Not for your peer dependencies and all these kinds of stuff, but it will at least assist you a bit with versioning and these kinds of stuff.
There was a question from Suraj, so I hope. Do you still need an answer to this, or do you understand it now? Because I think we talked about these entry points, secondary entry points, for a bit. So, are you? Does it make sense now, Suraj?
Let's wait. He will probably answer in a couple of seconds.
Yeah.
So the YouTube channel is always a bit behind, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He got it.
You got it. Cool. Okay, so we have another one here. Inside the Nx monorepo, how does Git branching works?
I mean, Git branching, I think, Nx monorepo has nothing to do with how Git branching works, right? So it's your workspace, and you can, of course, create multiple branches, and then you can work on, same as you do inside Angular.
So maybe I can ask a question, Santosh. And you already mentioned it a bit. So from your experience, if you have like a bigger-ish monorepo with like, I don't know, let's say 20 libraries, a component kit, and all these kinds of fancy stuff we need as front-end developers, and we don't adopt buildable libraries, because there was a couple of times back, I don't know, a couple of months or maybe even 6 buildable libraries wasn't yet there. So now we're building it as a normal Angular app, let's call it that way, and now we need to migrate over it. I've done it a bit, and it's hard, so maybe we can talk a little bit about it on what your approach is and what would you recommend to do.
Yeah, I mean, of course, if you are planning to migrate from non-buildable library to buildable library, as I already mentioned, it's a pain. So use Nx move utility. That really helps, because of course you don't have to do everything manually. or add files manually, what you can do is, generally this is what I do. I rename the older libraries so they don't give conflicts, and then use NX move to actually create a new library, which is buildable. So it, like, if you rather than 15 minutes, you will do something in 2-3 minutes.
Yeah, yeah. So what I did, and I think it's how do you say it? A panel host of your this is learning part is Jay Bell. He made a schematic to migrate over non-buildable Angular libraries to make them buildable. There's some quirks there, and he made a blog about it. But that's also something which our viewers can maybe have a look at if you want to adopt it. It will take the hard parts out of it. There are still some issues, but it's also easier with that without doing it all manual, at least.
Yeah, manual is pain. I mean, of course. Okay, so Varun has this question inside NX Monorepo. How does Git branching works on subtree? So okay, so Varun, NX Monorepo, when you say this, that entire workspace is part of your Git. So it's not like single project will be another Git, or you can create another branch from another project. No, it's a single Git workspace which you get. So it's not like you can take one project and move into another branch and do something. No, you have to always work with the entire workspace. That's one of the trade-off of having monorepos as well. So you have to always work on the entire code base. I hope this answers your question.
Question. Let's say you want to have, I don't know, maybe it doesn't make sense, but I'll ask it anyway. So let's say you want to have just some TypeScript files, which is not an Angular component, is technically nothing. Can you have that as a buildable library? If it's just some TypeScript code, I don't know, some utilities, some services, some I don't know what, but nothing to do with Angular, let's say.
Yeah, you can actually, you can put it. Okay. I mean, generally, the thing is, in case you are trying to use those utilities inside a buildable or publishable libraries, you will get the error. So you will get a linting error that, okay, this is not allowed, and you should only import from buildable libraries to a buildable library. So if you are using it inside buildable library, of course, you have to convert it to buildable library.
Yeah. Cool. That's cool. Any other questions?
No, I wanted to ask the buildable dependency, like buildable or buildable needs to be dependent on each other, but it already answered by Santosh. Because that's also a hard part. If you migrate it, you need to go. Let's say you have a tree and you need to start on the bottom, migrating over the buildable libraries, because otherwise the dependency tree of the libraries or the projects, I don't know how you would call it, but it won't work. So buildable libraries only can depend on buildable libraries. It doesn't matter if it's Angular, React, or a Node project, but buildable libraries only depend on buildable libraries. And the compiler, the NX compiler, I think it is, it's smart enough to know that it needs to build first the buildable libraries before the Angular application or before the React application, but you need to start on the leaves of the bottom nodes, let's call it like that.
So earlier there was a flag called with deps, which is not deprecated, so you don't have to use with deps. Once you, let's say, build your application, it will NX is smart enough to go ahead and create that dependency tree and see, okay, what is dependent on this particular application, and it will build everything, and you don't have to worry about it.
Cool. Oh well, if there aren't any more publishable libraries question, I've got a question. Do you know of anything new that's coming in Angular apart from something that maybe not everybody knows? I don't know. Apart from the single independent components without the ng module.
Standalone. Yeah, standalone components are coming. So,
yeah. Anything else? Anything else in the anything?
I think apart from standalone components, of course, the forms typing has been worked upon, and we may get better typings, but not for everything. So that is also coming, but I think that's true. Everyone is aware of, and the same is I'm aware of right now.
The title strategy, the new one that's part of 14.
Sorry?
The title strategy as well. Sorry for my voice.
Sorry.
The new title of how for SEO purposes.
Oh yeah, the page title in the HTML,
title
meta
in
title,
the
or whatever it's called.
Yeah, because well, it's something which is a good one.
Yeah,
Very good one actually.
It was there from a long time. I think the issue finally it happened. So yeah, so I think Dan mentioned that this is a little bit complicated. Yes, this is not for starters. So buildable libraries, publishable libraries, secondary entry points. These are like some concepts which you need to understand once you start working on a big code base and you start hitting those bottlenecks that where you are getting huge chunks as part of your builds, and then you have to figure out, okay, what I need to do now. So yeah, it's complicated.
Yeah, and maybe it's good to know that also the Angular CLI has library support. So if you don't want to adopt Nx right away for some reason, you can at least go to the documentation of Angular on the Angular.io website, and there's also like a complete explanation on how you can create libraries with an Angular CLI and even publish it. So that would be like maybe the first step if you want to dive deep in it and have a little bit of understanding on how this works within Angular, within the Angular CLI, and then adopt it with the Nx part.
Yeah, the only thing is, I mean, if you're trying to configure secondary entry points in Angular using Angular CLI, you have to do it manually. So there is no workaround. So
yeah,
I mean, for me, I think when I started doing it with Angular CLI, so I know how to like get my hands dirty, so I know everything, and that's sometimes best way to do it.
Yeah, Nx has quite a few great additions on to help the developer experience there.
Yeah,
but just the documentation is pretty good. So if you want to have some documentation, some reading about library creation with Angular, it's all present on the Angular.io.
Yeah.
Cool. Do you know anything about the micro frontend support in Angular 14? I think I've heard something about it.
I'm not sure it will be there, but I think it's something. Yeah, it's something which is still in plan, but not sure if it is available. It will be available in Angular 14.
Yeah, there's some materials on it from Manfred Steyer,
Yeah,
I think.
Yeah, you can do it manually. It's available. So Manfred has a schematic available which you can use, but not by default by Angular CLI, because Webpack 5 actually adds the support for micro frontends, and Angular has to actually create schematics and all those things, which is good for developer experience. So you can still do it. It's not like it's not there. You can do it, but probably you have to do it manually or just use the schematic from Manfred.
That's cool. If there are no other questions, I want to... Any other questions? Nope.
No, not for me.
All right, then. Thank you all for joining. Thank you, Santosh, for accepting our invite again and for being here with us tonight. And also, if you need help, great, best place for, in my opinion, go to Angular Nations, and there's loads of bunch of nice people there that you can get help from and just have a chat, So yeah, I'm gonna say bye-bye to all of you.
Yeah, sure. Just one more thing. I mean, Alex, so we have started this. This is Angular community on Twitter, and if you want to be part of the Angular community, you can feel free to just DM me. I'll add you to that community, and that's it. That's the last thing I have to share.
Cool.
Yeah, I'm already joined. Nice.
I know most of you are already there, so yeah. Cool.
All right then.
That's it.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.